Hey folks, Eric Dillon here. You know, it's been a long time, but we got another installment today. Some sun shining in my peepers there a little bit. Peepering. Move over. So, today I was thinking about accountability and how that relates to your mindset. When you want to improve, shift into that positive mindset, quit being such a negative Nancy, all of the things that we talk about on here. Accountability has a hell of a lot to do with it, because I'm here to tell you it's really easy to fall back into those old patterns and tell the old story or say shit like, well, that's the kind of stuff that just happens to me. That's just my luck, or I'm always having this or this go wrong. Okay, you, as everybody on this channel hears me talk about this, is when you repeat things over and over and over again, that is what you will actually magnetize your fucking life to be like. And I was the most guilty person in the world of doing that kind of stuff. Because for years and years and years, I was always more concerned and more focused on what I didn't have or where I thought my life should be at a certain point than where I actually was. And what that created was, number one, all kinds of problems and a lot of loss in my life, but it also created more lack. Because when I was focused on, I should be at this and this point in my life, or I should, have this taken care of, but I don't, the reward that I got for focusing on not having was, guess what? More of not having. So accountability is what I'm talking about. And it's a tough one for a lot of people, and me included, to, even if you don't feel like you're playing the victim card all the time and the victim mentality that we talk about a lot in, not just my videos, but that you see a lot of the victim mentality. Even if you don't actively feel like you're being a victim or acting like a victim, you really have to sit in some solitude and think, what actions and thoughts and self-talk am I reflecting that has the potential to be an undercurrent of victimhood, so to speak? Because very, very few of us on this planet are immune to saying things like, well, this always happens to me, or, it's just my luck. Oh, that's just how it goes, only two things guaranteed in life: paying taxes and dying. And, we hear these trite, cliche statements all of our lives over and over and over again. And it's so much a part of our lexicon that we just adopt it. And no matter what you think, adopting that into your vocabulary, into your Rolodex of terms and mottos and sayings, that means you believe it. That means you believe it. When you make a statement like, God, I'm so tired today. Oh man, I just can't shake this. I'm so tired. You're going to fucking be tired all day. And I think what throws people off is they go, yeah, but you're just imagining that you're not tired when you really are. All you're doing is acknowledging the truth. Okay, it's the truth as far as you are feeling a certain way. All right. That doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means that you are not reiterating reality and enhancing it, actually making it that much worse by focusing on what you don't want. I mean, everybody can sit there and say, like relationships, for example, well, I know what I don't want in a woman, or I know what I don't want in a man. Okay, if you give me a list of 100 things that you don't want in a relationship, is that all you're ever focused on? Because inevitably, you will end up in those situations. Repetition and the accountability for your thoughts is a huge thing. People don't want to admit it. Well, I can't help how I think. I can't help that. All right, your programming is what's making you say that. Hearing things from other people and from our parents and our upbringing in the very formative years of life, where we're basically like a sponge for everything. Those are all of the factors that make us feel that way. But when we recognize that and we say, you know what, fuck this, I'm not going to be that way anymore. I am going to actively work on a mental diet. And yeah, it is a mental diet. You are making a diet for yourself of thoughts. Because when a shitty thought comes up or a negative thought comes up, you go, okay, I'm not giving it any credence. I'm not using it as a anchor for my thoughts to spiral down to the bottom of the ocean, down to Dave Jones's locker, to the depths of the sea, and be even more pissed off and negative and shitty. I am going to use that thought as a little reminder to keep going back into my visualization, manifestation, whatever you want to attribute it to, of positivity and being more aligned with what you truly want to be. Because look, you're never going to be able to avoid your emotions, but if you are constantly saying, it's just my luck, I am just, blessed by all this bad luck, if I can't even think of all the fucking things, because I've said them all. That's the thing. I've said them all. I've said all kinds of shitty stuff. Not realizing that I was feeding my brain more and more reinforcement, like I said, just like a diet, feeding it more and more shitty ass food so that it just became worse and worse and worse. Now, I am not saying that I float on the ether and I don't have any challenges, difficulties, problems, whatever in my life. God's far from that. So far from that. But it's a difference of taking accountability for how you react, and how I personally have had to take that accountability and go, you know what? No more. I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm not allowing this to drag me down. I'm going to let that little negative thought, anger, sadness, whatever it may be, pop up, acknowledge it, and then go right back on the track and say, here's some more positivity. Everything that happens doesn't happen to me like I'm a victim of circumstance. Because even though I didn't think I was playing the victim card, by focusing on black, that was deferment. That was me deferring off, owning every single thing that happened in my life as being my fault, basically. Off to some other circumstantial thing. So instead of, as I've said before, instead of saying, things happen to me, realize you are fucking yourself with that. Things happen through you. And no, that doesn't account for, disease. Obviously, you can come from, chronic diseases can definitely come from negativity. I'm here to tell you that. But they can also be ameliorated and overcame with obviously addressing the base issues. If there's something, nutrition-wise, food-wise, other attributes like exercise, etc. If there's things that you can do physically, supplement-wise, drug-wise, some drugs, to address that condition, look beyond just putting a Band-Aid over it, and also into the cure of that particular disease. Dis-ease, like they say, always comes from, there's something uneased in the body. Yeah, and your mental state has a lot to do with that. Otherwise, the placebo effect wouldn't exist. Or when they've done placebo surgeries on people where they do actually give them anesthetic, knock them out, put some stitches in them, tell them that they had whatever surgical procedure that they thought they were going in there for. No actual surgery was performed. But what do you know? They're recovery from, whatever condition that necessitated that surgery was there. What does that tell you? Miracle? Miracle is just instant manifestation. That doesn't degrade the level of saying something is a miracle, but it's the occurrence instantly like that we like to attribute to being a miracle. But people get sick, people get in accidents, people have basically bad things happen to them that I know a lot of people would argue, well, it's not their fault. They're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Bad things do happen to good people. Yes, I'm not saying anything against that, because I've had a few people in this whole subject matter what we've been talking about to say, yeah, but all that positive mindset stuff's one thing, but what about like the 4-year-old kid that gets some kind of terrible disease and passes away? Was that because he wasn't thinking positively enough? He doesn't even have the mental capacity to do that. That's what I'm saying. No, at that age you do not, because you're still in the formative range of brain waves that you're just absorbing everything. Of course there's genetic components to diseases. Of course there's accidents that, quote unquote, happen to good people. I've never said anything like that. But what I'm saying is the overall, general 99% of our day is completely a reflection, 100%, of our programming, of our attitudes, of our mindset, of the vibe that we put out, of how we show up, how we expect other people to show up. I mean, even people that poo-poo the whole idea of principles and concepts behind quantum entanglement and, oh damn, dude has got a loose ass gimmick on his truck rattling away. Anyhow, yes, as I was saying before I got so distracted, there is a definite mental paradigm that even people who do not believe in any of the stuff that I've talked about, that think we're just basically flotsam and jetsam floating around on the ocean at the will of whatever happening to us at any time of the day, are still the same people that will admit, let's say when you're a 7-year-old kid, you get in trouble and you wait till dad gets home. Okay, well, in that interim period before dad gets home, when you get told that, you start rehearsing the conversation. We do that as children. We do that as adults. We anticipate before an event, before a situation, before an occurrence, when we know something is coming up, we start mentally preparing ourselves for it and talking. Maybe if it's a conversation, we start talking both sides of that particular conversation, like how it's going to go. And, to a person, the majority of folks that I talk to about this, I was guilty of the same thing, would say, I just expect the worst. Just expect the worst because that's just my luck. That's just what happens to me anyway. That's just my luck. If I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck at all, etc., etc. We've all said it. We've all heard it. And it's all fucking bullshit. It really is. It pisses me off now, of course, to think back that I basically had the key to this lock, and I was standing in front of the door, yelling at the door, wondering why it wasn't open. But you only know what you know, and you're truly embracing said knowledge at that particular time. It's like I say, when you're ready for something, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. I believe maybe that's paraphrasing, but damn. Bug hit the windshield loud as shit. Pop! The accountability for that kind of stuff, though, I'm saying in any given 24-hour period, any day, everything that occurs is my doing. Now, that's not from a stance of arrogance either, like, oh, I made all this shit happen. It means responsibility as well, and very few people want to take that responsibility, but it's part of that shift, part of that positive mindset shift that inevitably magnetizes you towards better things. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have another problem again. It just means, if anything else, that your lens of perspective is different. If you constantly repeat, bad things always happen to me, bad things always happen to me, it could be a fairly insignificant thing that happens, let's say on one of those days that you're in that mood, you're saying that shit to everybody. You know, maybe it's your fucking, I don't know, your shoestrings untied and you notice it. I was guilty of the same thing, so I'm here to tell you, that untied shoestring, if that was that one straw that broke the camel's back, that would be the thing. I'd get pissed off about, bent out of shape, like, God, so much time and effort and energy wasted on what? On nothing. And what repelling energy I must have been putting out to anybody around me of being in a shitty mood like that. Because God knows I sure was, in a lot of ways, in a lot of days, a lot of times, and So, for anybody who was around me back in those days, I gotta say I'm sorry, because if I ever took anything out on you or got shitty about stuff that had nothing to do with our interaction, then I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm not just going to say I apologize. I am going to say I'm sorry, because there is a difference. There is a difference. But now I look at it in retrospect and thankfully things are on a better path. And as I said, that accountability, that responsibility of saying, yes, I'm the one. I am the one. I'm the one who caused this. I'm the one who created this. Now, part of Neville Goddard's teachings were everyone is you pushed out. There is so much argument, just like there is with a lot of his teachings and seminars from back in the day. There's a lot of argument as to what that meant. You know, some people will take that for meaning that everybody is you pushed out, having the definition of you create other people's reactions to you. Well, then there's the argument that that takes away free will. That means nobody can make their own choices, that everybody is just your puppet, and the way you view them is instantly how they're going to be coerced to act. That's one viewpoint. And none of these viewpoints have any real tangible way to be scientifically proven, I wouldn't think. Not yet. But there is such a thing as the observer effect, and you know, when particles are observed, they will react differently and exist in different states than if they are not. Are we particles? Hell yeah, we're made of particles. And billions of particles. And a lot of times too, that observer effect isn't just the state of our particles, and therefore us, but also that observer effect applies to where are you putting your attention? Is your attention on that negativity? Is your attention on that this always happens to me? This is just our family luck, or this is just our curse, or this is just how things are for us. This is what I always expect. If you expect the worst, then you're always prepared. No, if you expect the worst, then you're always going to be looking at things from a lens of negativity and magnifying them. Always. Yeah. And of course, there's the reticence of saying, wish I could have all that time back, you know, to live it differently, but clearly, even though time is not linear and time is an illusion, not yet are we able to easily quantum jump back from one time to another, etc., etc., and change any course of our actions via our attitudes or any other way. Not yet. Not yet. Some interesting theories are out there, obviously, about time travel and the grandfather effect, saying that if you could travel back in time and killed your own grandfather, would that therefore make you not exist and you disappear out of the timeline? There's so many questions you can ask about that sort of stuff, but digging rabbit holes, as you find in any of this stuff, or pretty much any esoteric subject, psychological subjects as well that are more grounded in what traditional science believes and puts out, it will go as deep as you're willing to dig. As deep as you're willing to dig. Because like I said, some people will take like a principle of everyone is you pushed out and say that means you are the operant power to the level that only you create your reality, and every action that somebody else, like let's say you go to the gas station and the dude working behind the counter is just a flat out jackass to you. There is a school of thought that says that particular person was an asshole to you, not because of anything you did, but because everyone is you pushed out, so you must have expected them to be that way, and therefore they stepped into that alignment, that vibration of acting like that towards you when you were in their presence. Uh-oh, beeping. Where are you? Beeping away. Peepering. Yep, there he is. So, even if you don't take it to that high of a level that everyone is you pushed out bit means that sort of thing, it's pretty clear that expectations do lead to occurrences. And if anything else, they change our frame of perspective, our lens of perspective, as I say, to a focus point that could be more negative, could be more positive, or could be more annoyed by something that someone else might not even get bothered by. They always say everybody has their button. Everybody has something that, might piss them off or bring them joy, either end of the spectrum. Much more so than somebody might not even be bothered by something that you get bent out of shape about. Well, okay, that's fair. We all have differing personalities when it comes to what grates our ears or what makes us happy. But even in that statement, makes us happy. We make ourselves happy. Yeah, that's true. It's a hard pill to swallow too, because it's difficult in the human condition, being that we are experiencing this life as humans, not to have emotions about things, not to have at some point or another hurt feelings, sad feelings, loneliness, anger, any of the quote-unquote bad emotions, as well as the good. Love being the most important of all those. True unconditional love. Yes, my friends, that is what we're here for. That is our basis. Our basis in life is unconditional love. Because everything stems from that. If you really examine the best things in life, they all stem from unconditional love. Our enjoyment, our passion, our happiness. The old saying, if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. You can be so overly critical of yourself and so berating of yourself and demeaning to your own self that you have no self-concept. You think you're worthless. You think you're absolute garbage, and there's still somebody out there that might think you're the best thing that's ever walked into their life. That being said, if your self-concept is unworthiness, and that's rejection, that's your vibe, that's what you put out, of course people will pick up on that. We've all worked around somebody or been around somebody who's just, for whatever reason, they are happy all the fucking time. They are literally Mary Poppins, just as pleased and as happy and as gleeful as can be. And for some of us, that can be very grating. That can be very irritating, you know. I guess it depends on the basis of what that person is squeaking away about like that. You know, if you're already in a bad mood, let's say, and that's the predetermination of your morning, you walk into work and somebody is glowing like that. No, in a bad case of the Mondays, turn that frown upside down. And they say a bunch of shit like that to you. You're probably not going to react the best to them, but even before I started on this whole path of positive mindset shift and all that stuff, I can remember a handful of people in my life that would be like that. I'm not going to lie, they did always piss me off, especially, say, in a work situation where I didn't care for my job, I was pissed off, didn't want to be there anyway. There's usually, depending on where I worked, there was only one thing that was going to make me happy about a particular job that I had, if I was going to be in that same spot. But anywhere else, any of the other spots that I went to, being around somebody like that just, oh my God, rubbed me the wrong way. And I think we've all been there at some point or another. But, you know, now looking at things like a dial, negative all the time being obviously one extreme end of the dial, the spectrum. And then being like that is the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, I'm more of a believer now that, okay, that's a little extreme, but more power to you. If you can be happy like that and unaffected and unbothered by absolutely anything and everything, you have achieved a level of enlightenment that is, that's pretty damn good. It's impressive. That's impressive to me. I can't say whether or not I would ever envision myself being that high level of enlightenment, but, you know, it's, no matter what stresses have happened to me, no matter what had happened through me, here I go, see, neurolinguistic programming being what it is. Watch the words that you say about yourself, to others about yourself. You're programming all the time, or you're removing old programs that don't serve you anymore. Anyway, what I was saying is, whatever stress sores and sources of stress, problems, bad days, whatever you want to throw the moniker at, of things that I have went through during this process, it's been tough, I'm not going to lie, but I have gradually, click by click, little by little, turned that dial of my own from really fucking negative all the time, you know, for the most part, to acceptance, happiness, allowing emotions are going to happen. Of course they're going to occur. But saying things like, well, you make me feel, no, it's something that another person did or said, created a reaction that you either notice and let float by, go on with your day. Now, I'm not saying accept disrespect and shittiness from people constantly without standing up for yourself, but realize that the more you sit and brew and, you know, allow things to, you make me feel this way, or you did this to me. Well, you chose to act that way because you weren't completely accountable for your own reactions. You can't be accountable for your emotions. Like, they're going to happen, of course. It's how you react to said emotions. You know, that really cliched thing of counting to 10. You know, all of the principle of the counting to 10 thing was before you get mad. Or before you react, I should say, about being mad. There's validity to that, because even though you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the idea behind it is pausing before reacting. And wow, was that a big one for me. Holy shit. Because of course I still catch myself. If somebody cuts me off driving on the road here right now, I was never a road rage kind of dude that I can remember. Maybe, depending on the situation. But for the most part, I'm just not going to be bothered. Look, if I didn't wreck because of it or whatever else, you know, maybe there was something going on with that person that I have no clue how bad it was. That could have been their last straw. You know, they're like driving home to crash out. They might be really thinking of ending it all, and that, you know, final little swerve in front of me was a way to say fuck you to the world. I don't know, but getting bent out of shape about it, what good is it going to do anyway? What's the best possible outcome of that? There is none. There is none. So, weird ass little sign on the last block turning before my joint here. Anyway. Accountability for yourself and for your mental diet, for the things that occur through your day, is the motto of this little, or the overall je ne sais quoi of this particular installment, folks. It doesn't happen easily, and it doesn't happen overnight. It does require, like I said, mental diet. Acknowledge those emotions and thoughts coming through your head. Pause. Give them no weight. Doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. It just means that you give them no weight whatsoever, and you roll the fuck on to whatever else you're going to do in the day, knowing internally that, God dang, all right, knowing internally that everything that happens, one way or another, is to your benefit. That's a big one, and that's what I'm going to leave you with. If there's one thing through this half an hour's worth of diatribe that you take from this, try using that statement as often as needed. PRN, as we say in pharmacy, as needed. It's abbreviation for as needed that they put on prescriptions is PRN. Anyway, everything that happens to today, everything that happens, about to say to me, I fucking got myself. Everything that happens today is for my favor. You wake up in the morning and you're doing that few seconds or even minutes of expressing gratitude, and then you repeat that statement to yourself. It does change things, because if you end up getting delayed in traffic, I always say shit about traffic. I don't know why. You think I live in that fucking city. But if something fucked up goes on, it doesn't mean that you instantly smile about it. You just go, oh, okay, maybe the reason that I ended up being late because of this, or this is a benefit to me, because otherwise I might have gotten in a wreck, or, you know, I do use that as an example too. But think about that. Everything that happens today is for my benefit, one way or another. It's tough, because you look at things like, oh, I didn't expect that extra $400 at the dealership today for that part. But then, you know, if you look at that and go, okay, well, maybe there's a beneficial reason behind that. And you know what? I am not going to dwell on it and use it as fuel for negativity. I'm going to press on. Press the fuck on. All right. I have rambled enough. This is your latest installment. And as I've said on my shorts, not my chones, I mean my short YouTube shorts. If you vibe with what I talk about, if you have any benefit or even humor from these ramblings of mine, do me a favor. Like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. As I've stated, I'm just getting started with this. I've got a lot to talk about and a lot of learning that, I want to learn, and I want to share some of the stuff that I've learned. If this can help one other person out there that was, in a lot of ways, not floundering, I guess isn't the right word, but just in a spot like I was, but decided, you know what, no more. I'm going to shift my mindset, make things better. Then at least I'm spreading the word, doing my job, sole purpose. One of my sole purposes. I have 3. But that's a whole different installment. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.